Hi, and welcome to another Library 101. Today's topic is Friends of the Library Group versus the Library Foundation, but we'll be looking at the Friends Group first. Our library development staff get a lot of questions about the differences between having a Friends of the Library Group and a Library Foundation. This video is meant to clear up a bit of the confusion about the roles that these two important entities play in the life of a library. This Library 101 is important because the line between what a Friends group does and what the Library Foundation does is a very fine one. When a library has both, it can be difficult to differentiate between one group's job and the other's. The tutorial is broken into two parts, so we can look at exactly what the Friends of the Library do and what the Library Foundation does without it being too confusing. We also didn't want to bog anyone down with too much information at once, so covering one aspect and then the other will make retention easier and you'll be able to find the information at a later date faster. So what is a Friends group? Friends groups, or Friends of the Library, are nonprofit groups formed to support libraries in their communities. Support from the Friends groups range from financial to political to cultural. The group is made up of volunteers and generally works closely with library management. Why is it important? Friends groups are important because they support the library through gifts of money, volunteer time, program support, and advocating for the benefit of libraries. Having an active Friends group can be a make or break in grants that the library is seeking or in funding from the very community that the library is in. Friends advocate the success of the library to others in their community, including the leaders that decide on funding. Friends help a library succeed when they need money for things like STEM programs or people to run programming. In many libraries, it is the Friends group who run the used book sales. How do you create one? Starting a Friends group doesn't have to be difficult. The first step would be to see if your library needs one created or if it has one, but it needs to be revitalized. The role of the Friends group should be aligned with the needs of the library at large. So if they need a group to embark on a fundraising campaign, it would be important to get members who can help with that goal. A Friends group is generally independent of the library, so the library board shouldn't need to approve a Friends group being started. A Friends group can't be created overnight and will take time and energy to get it right. In order to begin, an executive board for the group needs to be created. Basically, a group of people who are willing to do the strategic planning and administrative work. This will include people with the designations of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. After the needs of the library are assessed, the board is created, and the Friends have a direction. The group will need to create bylaws and establish a 501c3 status in order to accept tax-deductible contributions. If no member of the Friends group wants to tackle the legal aspects of getting 501c3 status, there are regional foundations that allow libraries to create an account there for 501c3 status rather than setting up independently. In North Dakota, one of these organizations is the North Dakota Community Foundation. A Friends group will also need to get a formal operating agreement between the group and the library. Additionally, in order for the group and the library to work together, it helps for a member of the library to attend the Friends group's board meetings, or for the president of the Friends group to attend the library board meetings. These updates will lessen any confusion that might happen. If all of this doesn't seem too bad, there is a great resource from the American Library Association, United for Libraries, called Libraries Need Friends, a toolkit to create Friends groups or to revitalize the one you have. Much of the information for starting a group was pulled from this document, and it goes into all of the details of starting a Friends group that weren't covered here. So here's some highlights of the differences between the two groups. The staffing between the two is one glaring difference. A Friends group is comprised mainly of volunteers and serves their library with volunteer activities, programs, advocacy, etc. These volunteers also pay yearly dues to be a part of the Friends group. Whereas foundations can have paid staff of fundraising professionals, though sometimes they are dedicated volunteers as well. How they support the library is different as well. A Friends group supports the library in smaller financial ways. Some Friends groups sponsor summer reading programs, provide snacks at programs, and provide funds to purchase new collection materials. Others save up their money to see what the library really needs and might purchase circulating electronics or even a self-checkout machine. Whereas foundations will support in larger financial ways, such as providing funds and doing fundraising for capital projects like bookmobiles, renovations, or even expansion projects. How these two groups get their finances is different between them as well. A Friends group gets their finances primarily through membership dues, but they also have some smaller fundraising efforts, such as used book sales or a used bookstore. The foundation gets finances through donations from the community. They solicit yearly donations as well as endowments in order to provide financial support to the library. Thank you for joining me for this bite-sized video on library Friends groups versus library foundations. I encourage you to contact your library development specialist if you have any questions on how to start a Friends group. If you have any questions on this video, please email me at ndsltrain@nd.gov.